I heard you on the Bad Christian podcast. Shout out to those guys. It's a really cool podcast that I've followed on and off. And I guess you've came out in sorts as an advocate for Christian cannabis. And one of my most popular videos on my channel is weed a sin? Mm-hmm. And till this day, I still get just probably a dozen comments on it pretty regularly, you know, just debating and all that kind of stuff. And I did the video and I was just kind of like, the question isn't, is weed a sin? The question is, can you consume marijuana and still remain sober-minded? Yeah. And I was just like, at the time, I was just like, I don't know, you know, like, because I don't consume it like that. I don't know enough to have an opinion on it. Talk about how you were even opened up to trying cannabis, like, because it was a journey. It wasn't like an overnight thing. It was a journey. So can you tell some of that backstory?
Yeah, it's 2013 for me. Just tough year. I've been a guy who's learning a lot now recently. Just been in my head my whole life. You know, I'm a 3 on the Enneagram. If people follow that, the achiever, just kind of running fast and started a lot of stuff. Inside of the ministry, I don't have a big. There's not really a fence around us. Sure there is. You know, anything kind of short of sin we're willing to do, but we've been able to play in a space and disrupt things and create things. But with that, it's just like I'm always going and running. Yeah. And so, you know, I had some health issues after my dad died. My wife got sick with, you know, some ovarian cysts. And it was kind of one of those moments, 37 years old, just going, oh my gosh, like I've never not had my health. And it got to the point where for like 3 months straight, woke up with a headache that was just like deep. Couldn't look at a screen, couldn't look at anything.
Like a migraine type of thing?
Yeah, and I mean, I'd never even had a migraine. So it was like, oh, is that tension? Is that like, so went to a doctor. And I'm a guy that's like, whether it's in business or life, I'm going to find an answer and I'll probably find a shortcut. And, you know, if I find an answer, though, I want to make sure, like, don't just give me medicine. Why all of a sudden? So I had MRIs. Oh, maybe you have, you know, seizures. Maybe you have, I mean, all these prognoses. Okay, well, I'll go see that specialist. Maybe it's, you know, autoimmune. So I'd see these specialists and they're like, everything looks fine. And then, here's a prescription, though, to take care of, like, the pain. And that was just like, I literally had like 10 different prescriptions. And my wife's like, why don't you fill any of these? And I'm not anti-pills, but it was just like, because one day I wake up and I'm sick. So then I went to psychiatrist. He even prescribed things. I don't think it's this, but just in case. And that's where I was just like,
just in case is sketchy,
just in case.
man.
It's like, no, dude. So then I was like, fine. It was actually a friend, a guy who I met through news TV, a guy named Martin Bashir, and broke the whole Michael Jackson story years ago, and it became a good friend of mine. And he said to me, like, maybe this is just the Lord trying to get your attention to stop. So I canceled all my speaking engagements for the whole fall. I told my team, like, hey, I can't keep working like this. I told my wife, like, I'm going to be home, but I'm going to try and slow down. And so in the season there, I don't know, we end up watching the weed documentary on CNN,
right?
And it was just Sanjay Gupta. And then my buddy comes over, guy, Christian World, PAX 217, guy named Dave Tosti, and that we used to do Christian church events together. And he's just like, yeah, man. He started crying. We watched this thing. It's Sunday morning. My wife's like, why don't you guys go get your medical marijuana cards? I'll watch the kids. And Dave's like, I love your wife. And it's like,
that's
you know, so instead of church, we're like, we'll go there. And we meet this doctor on Skype. It was super ghetto. And then they gave us our cards, and my card actually had his name on it. That's how we know we're not doing something illegal, but we knew, like, this is like one step above from, like, it's legal, but this is shady. And it's
sketchy.
Like, then we go, and this girl's falling out of her top at this dispensary. And we're like, what do you have that could, like, help some of these symptoms? She literally is like, I just have effing top shelf. I didn't even know what that was. And that's like 37% or more THC. She goes, that will just get you effed up. And I was like, oh, I don't want that. Anywhere else I could go, and besides Colorado at that point, that had something like this. And I bought a few things. I tried some things and had experiences like it sounds, you know, you guys are going to do a whole show about just everyone's first bad trip because you eat a cake pop and you're like, awesome, it doesn't taste like anything. Oh, cool, I'll keep eating that whole bag of chips or gummies. And that's the problem early on with edibles. They didn't have anything, you know, dosage-wise, what was legit. It was like, oh, this is fun, or this freaks me out, and I don't know. So I had a few things around the house, renewed my medical card the next year, and I would occasionally pop into a store if I saw, you know, a new one showed up, and would always kind of be curious of like what's out there. So fast forward that, nothing kind of helped. And I would say I had some things just resolved for me, but I didn't go back to, I've never gone back to the road at the pace I was. I've never gone back to, you know, the all-nighters and just the amount of work I was doing. So, but then in 2017, January, this in California became recreational legal. So what you saw was all these shops. So you didn't need a car, new shops popping up. And I was like, oh, finally. And now there's a lot more regulations. And so actually the first things I ever found were just these mints. And they used to be called, let me just hold them up. They used to be called Relaxa mints. Now they're called Breeze mints. And so I told the guy at the store, hey, at this point, it wasn't headaches. It was just like, dude, my mind goes, you know, I've tried meditation. I've tried different things. I'd love something, you know, that just kind of settles me. And he's like, here's a Relaxa mint. And I was like, okay, genius name. Like, that's it. He's like, 5 milligrams. What should I take? Don't take the whole thing. It'll probably take 30 minutes to kick in. And so I started working with that in a way where it was like, oh, I'm going to try something. I'm not going to try.
Can I see those?
You know, 10 of them at the same time, but it was actually a week in Vegas at the AVN, the porn show for the week. I cut out, went to the spa midday, took one, and it was just a feeling that for me, I had never experienced, where it was just like, you just shut something off. And, you know, the joke is, oh, you're going to just eat pizza and just be a bum and do nothing. And yeah, for some people, maybe that's what you need to do. For other people, you know, I've taken some cannabis before where it's like super creative and I'll end up writing, or talked to a friend the other day. It's like, I didn't even know I could paint. And, you know, you just get super creative. A friend of mine's doing, actually, we're going to release it, a course on creativity and cannabis on here on Christian Cannabis. But for me, I needed something to kind of turn things off. And, you know, I believe that's where, you know, obviously the Lord doesn't live in my head. You know, that's all me. But yet his spirit in my heart, if I could connect in more of a space, a heart space, I don't know. I went back to that for 3 days and just spent a few hours in the spa every day. And I just felt like when I left, why wouldn't I try and not do this as cannabis every day, but try and be in this sort of space. And so then I would say, when people say like working with cannabis or working with the medicine, I started experimenting with things at night, where it was like, hey, I'm not around people. I'm going to just kind of test, instead of working all night to all hours of the night, I'm going to try and see some different things that might work for me. And eventually, obviously by 2019, I was like, I don't have a problem with this. It's totally legal. I've talked to a lot of people about this. But any pastor that I would talk about as I travel with Triple X Church was like, well, we don't know what to say about that.
We don't have a position on it.
And they have positions. I mean, whatever church you go to, there's an alcohol policy. And they range from we don't care to you can't drink in public. In one church, you can drink in public, but you can't post it on social. Okay. You know, it's not like you're going to do or then, you know, I grew up in a church, you couldn't drink, you couldn't dance, you couldn't, you know, have drums. So rules for just the sake of rules. So as I've sat with some of the largest churches in America, the pastors, why aren't you talking about this? Like, church I go to is a mile away from all the dispensaries in Santa Ana. And they have campuses, I think 30 something campuses around the world. So you're telling me, you know, I talked to the pastor, he says, you know, and he's got a global pastor. And I said, so what would your global pastor say? And he's like, I don't know. And so what happens if a person in your congregation says, hey, pastor, like, I'm suffering, I found this, is God okay with that? Or, and you have no answer? And I know, I don't like the idea of just having a stance. You know, I think what we're doing on the gay and the LGBT issue, you know, there's a couple groups that are you pay them to bring in, and they come up with, how do you talk about this? These churches are getting roasted in LA right now, where you belong here, but you really don't. You know, you can't serve here. And I think we got to do a better job with that. But I think, in all honesty, with cannabis, it's just silence. I'd be okay with a stance. Just, hey, it's okay. or if you're going to say it's not okay, have a reason. But if you don't talk about it, and if you're in a city or if you're in a state that this is legal, I mean, we're going to end up in all states like that. This has to be on your radar. And I don't know. A friend of mine, when we launched the site, he's like, I know there's only 2 people that in the space that would have done something like this. You know, and he's like, you being one of them. So
that's dope.
And a friend of mine that runs this huge church says, Craig, why don't you walk through this, and if it blows things up, it'll be easier for us to navigate later.
Yeah.